Says that it's my great pleasure to share some words about our honored and esteemed guest of honor, Shri K.N. Rao. Mr. Kotamraju Narayana Rao, or Shri K.N. Rao, as he is widely known, is a living legend in the world of Jyotisha Vedic astrology. He hails from an illustrious Andhra Brahmin family. He is the second of 4 sons of Shri K. Rama Rao, who was a highly respected journalist in the pre-independence era in India. K.N. Rao was initiated into astrology at the age of 12 in 1943 by his late mother and his Adi guru, Srimati K. Saraswati Devi. He received a master's degree in English literature and was a lecturer in English before joining the Indian Audit and Account Service. And he retired from there at a very high post. He was the Director General, and he retired in November 1990. K.N. Rao has cultivated a huge international network of friends, colleagues, and students, and admirers. He is widely praised not only as an astrological practitioner and a pioneer in the field, but also as a teacher of thousands of students around the world. He is a skilled researcher, a prolific author of many articles and countless books, and he is the chief editor of the prestigious Journal of Astrology. Shri K.N. Rao created a novel technique known as the K.N. Rao Chara Dasha, a Rashi Dasha used for making calculations, mostly in Jaimini astrology. And many of us, including myself, use this dasha every day in our work as astrologers. Between 1993 and 1995, K.N. Rao visited the United States on 5 lecture tours. He was the guest of honor at the second conference of the American Council of Astrology in 1993. He was also instrumental in starting the K.N. Rao Institute of Astrology at the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan in New Delhi, where he remains advisor and senior teacher. Raoji's mantra guru was Swami Paramananda Saraswati, a Bengali from eastern India whom he met in 1962, who spiritualized his whole life and rekindled his interest in astrology as part of his sadhana. His Jyotish guru was a Gujarati from western India, the incredible yogi Bhaskarananda, who taught him the most incredible and rare secrets of spiritual astrology. Raoji describes Yogi Bhaskarananda as the last of the Rishi astrologers in the purest classical mold. Raoji has revealed some of the mysteries he learned from his gurus and through his own experiences in his book, Yogis, Destiny, and the Wheel of Time. Among his many books is a profound little spiritual book called Astrology and Faith, actual case studies of cures through astromedical diagnosis. This book is very special to me because it was an autographed gift from Raoji, and it's very well worn at this time. The book emphasizes the importance of surrender to God, along with daily mantras, pujas, and prayers performed for yourself and others. This is known as nitya karma. Raoji says in the introduction, when you neglect nitya karma, your tapo balam, which is the spiritual power and protective force that you can acquire through your religious practices, your tapo balam goes down when you neglect nitya karma. And then in times of distress, you are like one without a spiritual bank balance. This is a profound teaching that I share quite often with my own clients, and I also follow it as a very important teaching for myself. I was fortunate to get to meet K.N. Rao in 2012 when I visited his home in Delhi with my friend, Sunil John of Saptarishi's Astrology. It was a lovely October evening, one of the most memorable evenings of my life. We spent several hours together, drinking chai, eating snacks, and chatting. We discussed a variety of horoscopes. We talked about the contemporary world of Vedic astrology, and he shared about his life and his work. And he affirmed what I have learned, which is that it's a very tough subject to master Vedic astrology. It requires daily discipline and constant dedication because it is indeed a sadhana. I can personally attest that the divine wisdom of the Jyotish Vidya and the immortal sages of India flows through Shri K.N.Rao as a profound blessing. Therefore, we are tremendously blessed, honored, and fortunate to have Shri K.N.Rao with us today as our guest and honoree. And with that, I conclude my welcome address. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Swanson, for that beautiful welcome address. Now I'd like to welcome our ACVA President, Professor Charlotte Benson, and our ACVA Vice President, Dr. Sisira K. Amra Singhe, to present our Jyotish Vibhushan Award to Shri K.N.Rao.
Hello, everybody. This is a really wonderful event. I'm so happy to be here with you, and thank you for taking your time to join us in this celebration. So this Lifetime Achievement Award, the Vibushan, is the highest honor bestowed by the American College of Vedic Astrology. This prestigious award recognizes individuals who have demonstrated unparalleled dedication, scholarship, and service to the field of Vedic astrology over the course of their lifetimes. And so the purpose of presenting this award is to celebrate, in this case, Shri K.N.Rao's extraordinary contributions to the field. So in this case, this also symbolizes the advanced understanding, practice, and application of Jyotisha on a global scale, and has also inspired generations of practitioners, students, and scholars through exemplary teaching, mentorship, and personal integrity, and also have made profound contributions to the preservation, dissemination, and evolution of traditional Vedic astrology. So the criteria for selection of this prestigious award embody the following qualities: a lifetime of significant and impactful work in the field of Vedic astrology, exceptional scholarship and mastery of Jyotisha principles, contributions to the global Vedic astrology community that have shaped its growth and elevated recognition as a spiritual and scientific discipline, and also a commitment to upholding the integrity and sanctity of Jyotisha as a sacred Vedic science. So this significance of this word for ACVA is that it reflects ACVA's mission to honor those whose lifetime achievements have enriched and inspired the global Jyotisha community. It's a tribute to those whose contributions go beyond technical mastery to include the profound spiritual wisdom and insights that form the essence of Vedic astrology. So this award is presented annually during our graduation and award ceremony, where the recipient is recognized for their unparalleled contributions and service to Jyotisha. This public acknowledgement serves as an inspiration to the global Vedic astrology community to continue advancing the sacred knowledge with integrity and dedication. So you have my profound congratulations, sir. Thank you.
So it should be no surprise to anyone why the board of directors of ACVA went ahead with the award for Mr. Rao. And we have already heard a glorious biography of Mr. Rao from our Professor Juliana Swanson, the ACVA Provost. Now we do have a few colleagues, associates, and students of Mr. Rao here, waiting to greet him and offer him congratulatory remarks and welcome him to the ceremony, even though we have already welcomed a number of times. So in this list, I would like to invite first the former CEO of ACVA, Ms.Shobha Mohan. Apparently, Rao has mentioned Shobha's grandfather's name, the former president of India, Mr. V.V. Giri. So I would like to invite Shobha to say a few words.
Hello, everybody. Namaste to Shri K.N.Rao. Today, we celebrate the exceptional achievements of Shri K.N.Rao, who has consistently demonstrated dedication, passion, innovation, and excellence in the field of Jyotisha, making him a truly deserving recipient of this award, the Jyotish Vibhushan Award. As Juliana mentioned, Shri K.N.Rao is well known all over the world for being the founding member of the world's largest school of astrology, the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan in New Delhi. I truly believe there is nothing greater than imparting knowledge to so many people as he has done. As Sisira mentioned, yes, even though I haven't had the opportunity to meet you, Sri Rao, I've recently learned that our families' lives may have crossed paths in the past, probably before or even when my grandfather Sri V.V. Giri was president of India. So hello through them again. It's a small world. As a proud previous recipient of this award, it is with great pride that ACVA presents this recognition to Shri K.N.Rao. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Shobha. So now I would like to invite Ms. Christina Collins to say a few words.
I'd like to thank you very much for what you've done for ACVA by helping us form a team that lasted for you. I'd also like to thank you for your books, and my students thank you for your books. And I thank you for sharing your family stories and how your mother taught you as a tiny lad, like my grandfather taught me. So thank you. I really appreciate being here, everyone.
So thank you, Ms. Christina. So we are going to have Mr. Paul Manley, your longtime student and friend, speaking to you right now, Mr. Rao.
Namaste, everyone. It's such an honor to be here and to especially greet my Jyotish Guru, Shri K.N.Rao. Many thanks to the organizers for putting on this event. I feel very nostalgic about the first time that I met K.N.Rao in the fall of 1993. I consider one of the luckiest events of my life. I had just moved to Santa Fe, started a master's degree, and I received a phone call from Dr. David Frawley. And he says, I want to invite you to my house tonight. There's an astrologer from India who I know you like to meet. And the ironic thing was that I had just spent 7 months in India, and now my Jyotish Guru came to my backyard. I didn't meet him in India, but he came right to Santa Fe, where I was living at the time. And his great appeal to me from the beginning, what happened that night was he sparked this inspiration. And late at the night, I wasn't going to leave. I was have to be thrown out of the house. I was so transfixed to meet him. And he rolled up a cloth napkin and slowly unrolled it. And he looked piercingly at me and said, the dashas are the unraveling of our karma through time. And I was like so impacted by that. It was the stature of who he is, how that carried so much weight. So it's been this strong appeal that I have to his research-based practical approach, which I think can be summed up in 3 words. Is it working? Throughout all the years that I visited him in Delhi and studied with him, I heard him say this many times, is it working? So is it reliable? Is it replicable? Astrology needs to be relevant in today's world. Is the classical text misleading us, relevant to our modern times? But then, so this question or this statement, is it working, is like a clarion call to his students. Is it working? Is your prediction working in the natal chart? Okay, good. Don't stop there. Go further. We're just getting started. We're just rolling up our sleeves. Look in the divisional charts for that event. But that's still not enough. If you see it in Vimshoti Dasha, don't stop there. Look at Jaimini, Chara Dasha. And look from the alternate lagnas. Look from Chandra Lagna. Look from the Dasha Lagna. So this comprehensive, robust, practical approach, is it giving results? This is what struck me and has stayed with me in my practice. It's not enough to practice or don't be satisfied with an ordinary little prediction. Practice extraordinarily. Go further. Work highly intelligently, vigorously. So this is what has inspired me with his approach that I feel eternally grateful for. This flexing our interpretive skills so that we are developing the capacity to collect and gather and analyze many factors and synthesize that into one coherent conclusion. This is an art and a science. This is the endless quest as an astrologer, as a teacher. This is our path to that he has shown to me, and that I'm just incredibly grateful. This is the inspiration he imparted to me, and so, Mr. Shri K.N.Rao.
Thank you, Mr. Manley. Now we are going to have our commencement speaker and the longtime student of Shri K.N.Rao, Mr. Marc Boney.
Namaste, everyone, and heartfelt pranams, Shri Rao. I'll be rather brief. I'll just say that I don't think there's anyone more deserving in the world than this award than K.N.Rao. The impact that he's had on Vedic astrology worldwide is immeasurable. And, I think about myself, if I've been able to achieve anything in the world of Jyotish, it's only because of K.N.Rao. When I decided to consult, when I decided to teach, when I decided to author, basically what I did is I just emulated his approach in teaching and researching and authoring. And it's been the incredible blessing of my life, the greatest blessing of my life, to have an association with him. I was able to spend sometimes individually with him that I'll talk about a little bit in my commencement speech. And they're the most precious memories of my life. And so I'm just moved to be a part of this event where you're being honored, and humbled to be one person that's being honored as well. I love you deeply, and I always will, and I have tremendous gratitude towards you.
Thank you, Mr. Boney. Next, we are going to have the founding president of American Council of Vedic Astrology, Dr. David Frawley. Dr. Frawley.
Namaste, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. It is my great honor and privilege to be with K.N.Rao again. I have some karma going on. I just came back from India, by the way, 2 days ago. I can't say I'm totally free of jet lag. But when I came to India about 6 weeks ago, I was thinking of K.N.Rao. And I thought, I would meet him in Delhi. And then I was talking to Dr. K.S. Charak, we had also had some discussions on various things. And he said, oh, K.N.Rao is in Bangalore. Well, so it happens I was going to Bangalore. But at the same time, I was a very busy schedule. I was speaking for the India Foundation, and we were only there for a few days. I didn't have time to see K.N.Rao, but during the afternoon, during our lunchtime, K.N.Rao's niece came and introduced herself to us, and we had a good connection on that side. And my connection with K.N.Rao goes to of course, the pre-ACV era. And we had some very interesting discussions. And it also went beyond that in different directions, because I'm also involved in a number of different fields that K.N.Rao was also very knowledgeable about, whether it was the spirituality of India, the politics, the history, and the gurus involved. So I think I was with him since maybe around 1990. I was with him in 1992 when Babri Masjid came down, and he explained all of that. I stayed nearby. I was in a nearby hotel. He was in the Connaught Place area. So we would come at night, and his way of teaching is to start late and to go on into very early in the morning. And he had a great group of students, including people like Dr. Charak. And then, of course, he had the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, which has already been given the right degree of praise that it requires, and it is still ongoing. And he was very helpful. I had just released one of my other books on history called Gods, Sages, and Kings, and he managed to get it introduced to Girilal Jain, who was the head of Times of India, and helped that get going in that particular context. I was also one of the people who encouraged him to come to the initial ACVA and connect with it. As Paul has already said, he did stay with me sometimes. And I visited him a number of times in India, also went to the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. And over time, we had various connections. One of our common friends was Murli Manohar Joshi, and he eventually became the HRD Minister for Health and Education. And we managed, along with some others, to get him to introduce Jyotish into the schools, at least at a secondary level. And so we had many good connections on that side. Also introduced me to Hansa Baba, another great guru, and even more so with Sadhguru Shivananda Murti, which we remained connected to for all the way up until his Mahasamadhi in 2015. The last time I had seen Rao in a program or in person was in 2009, when Sadhguru Shivananda Murti had a whole program on mundane astrology and world predictions. A few ACV aligned people are also there, namely Edith Hathaway and James Kelleher. Also Gayatri Vasudev, Dr. Raman's daughter, who had great respect for K.N.Rao as well. And a number of us came to the conclusion, astrologically, I certainly did, that 2020 would mark what we called a new time of troubles for humanity, which would go on for some years. And whatever, it's even unfortunate, seems to be going forward. And I was very close to Shivananda Murti as a guru, and also for the ancient astrology, and also for his connections with various spiritual and social and educational organizations in India. So K.N.Rao had the unique karma to really establish a Vedic astrology in the West. I found at least one other country where he had a very fundamental role in bringing Vedic astrology, which was Russia. Russia has a lot of Vedic astrology, and a lot of it was also inspired by K.N.Rao. In fact, just on the 4th of December, we started another Zoom course with Russian students, which we've been doing for more than 20 years. And then recently, when I was in India, I met with a publisher, R.P. Jain, of Motilal Banarsidass Publishers, who sells the most Vedic astrology books, probably in India. And I said, which author do you have whose books sell the most? And he said, K.N.Rao. So after all this time, you can see all these factors going on. Through Rao, I met many other people. And that is kind of my history there. I'll be going back to India in February for the Kumbh Mela, particularly towards the end of it. And at some point, I hope to see K.N.Rao again. But he certainly deserves the award. But he's not just simply an astrologer. He's looking at astrology in a very broad social, political, educational, spiritual, and yogic vision. He's inspired many writers. Many of the books in India on Jyotish are not written by K.N.Rao. They are written by his students. And he's created a teaching model for Jyotish, which has been picked up by many. And of course, as you know, an interpretive model for Jyotish as well. So it's a great honor to be with him. And I hope that we all come to appreciate and carry on what he represents. And one thing I did say to his niece, I asked her, how many archival manuscripts does K.N.Rao have? And she said he had quite a few. And I said, please make sure to preserve and catalog, share, and print all of these. So thank you again for inviting me. K.N.Rao looks very good today. Not that he doesn't look good all the other times. The great light is coming through him, and we're all honored to be around him. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Thank you, Dr. Frawley. We are going to have the President Emeritus, Dr. Dennis Harness. Dr. Harness.
Okay, there we go. Namaste. It's wonderful to see everyone and Dr. Frawley, and K.N.Rao. Just a brief history. I met David Frawley in 1991, and we started to think about putting together the first international symposium on Vedic astrology, which happened in October of 1992. And our keynote speaker that year was Dr. B.B. Raman, which gave the address on bringing Vedic astrology to the West. And then in 1993 and 1994, Shri K.N.Rao graced us with his presence and gave the keynote talks in both 1993 and 1994 in San Rafael, California. He encouraged us to create the American Council of Vedic Astrology, which was the original ACVA. And we launched that date, April 5th of 1995, with his blessings, and also with Dr. Raman and his daughter, Gayatri Devi Vasudev, who helped us pick the Muhurta for that day. And it just so happened to fall on Bill William Levacy's birthday, which was April 5th. And then after that, what happened was we decided to create the American College of Vedic Astrology. Bill Levacy and I worked on it with Michiel Bonder and several other people. And so on November the 22nd, 1999, we launched the American College of Vedic Astrology. And this was a very powerful time for us. And it represents the 25th annual of the American College of Vedic Astrology, which was, again, just initiated in November of 1999. And the college, it really blossomed. Again, Bill Levacy and I and Michiel worked on it. Dr. Frawley, James Kelleher, other people definitely brought their energy to it. But what was interesting, too, was the college, the 25th anniversary we're having. I was mentioning to Charlotte Benson that it's our silver anniversary. And I can see a lot of our beards are a little silver over these days, too. And I was given the first presidency of the American College of Vedic Astrology from 1999 to 2007. And then Bill Levacy stepped in at that point from 2007 to 2017 and took over the presidency. And then finally, Charlotte Benson, Jyoti Devi, took over the presidency in 2017. So anyway, I feel very blessed to be here. And again, I honor Shri K.N.Rao and all of our fellow friends in our Sangha. So namaste.
Thank you, Dr. Harness. So just to conclude the vote, we need to formally award him the vote. We do have two agents waiting for the vote to be presented to him. And I greatly appreciate the help extended to us by Mrs. Varsha Rao and her husband, Mr. Gaurav Rao, his nephew and niece. Now his granddaughters, Ms. Narayana Rao and Ms. Ekambari Rao, are going to present the vote to him on our behalf. Ms. Rao is probably wondering how they have the vote. Yeah, please unmute Mr. Rao.
हो गया
किसके लिए कह रहे बोलने के लिए?
Okay.
Hello everyone. Namaste.
Namaste.
So I have my daughters over here, Ekambari and Dimitra Narayani. So they would present Mr. Rao the award today.
Thank you.
Baba Chacha, they have some.
हाँ कहाँ से मिला?
ये actually Dr. Shishira ने भेजा था.
हाँ
Dr. Shishira ने भेजा था. Courier भेजा था हमें आपको देने के लिए.
अच्छा इन्होंने
Yeah.
We have the award.
And there's a letter also.
ये क्या है?
Can you please show the award to the camera?
Sure.
ये खोलो.
It's a small letter. Dear K.N.Rao, congratulations. Thank you for your lifetime of service and Jyotish and to ACVA on behalf of the entire college.
Thank you.
Best wishes. Charlotte.
Thank you. ठीक है.
So,
क्या मुझे बोलना है?
so congratulations, Mr. Rao. We appreciate everything.
Would you like to say something?
ये कहा है क्या?
Yes.
We would like Mr. Rao to give a short acceptance speech. If possible. Please.
Okay. हाँ. Well, if I had to speak and speak on astrology and what we have done for astrology in Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan in Delhi, it will go on and on and on and on. It will not end tonight. Therefore, what I want to do is to tell you very small little things. The first is yourself when you are practicing astrology and you are teaching to others, remember to pinpoint the basic analytical structure of a horoscope. I have coined it as PAC, posited, aspected and conjunct. And dares, DARES. This Dhani Yoga, money, is Arishta Yoga, mishaps, R is Raj Yoga, high positions, E is exchanges, and S is special features of your horoscope. And one of the horoscopes that you should study deeply is that of Indira Gandhi, the woman Prime Minister of India, who was killed in 1984, October. And when you take this horoscope, analyze and put your analytical structure in clearest words. If you do that on 10 horoscopes, you find your predictive skill has increased tremendously. This PACDARES, no book teaches you. I evolved it over a period of time, and I find my students are progressing very fast because of this simple formula, PACDARES. Once you keep that in the mind, then do second thing. Generally, in which dasha are people rising high? Mostly, most of us who make some careers arise between the ages of 20 and 30. That will be the third dasha of your life. If you are in politics, you will generally rise in the fifth dasha. What are the special features of the third dasha or the fifth dasha which help you to rise high, very high, or reach even the highest post? If you go on this basis, you will find that your own astrology is progressing very fast. I wish I could teach it to some American here in India who could go and teach it in USA. Or I will try to see if we can make some records and send it to you. I evolved many techniques of analyzing this, and it works very well. Generally, Marc Boney has been doing it in teaching. But some of the latest techniques I evolved, I have not taught him yet. So I'll try to see how I can do that. In any case, it is easy to teach to Americans because we have no barrier of language. Talk in English and you understand. When I went to Russia, I found it very difficult because I had to depend upon the translator. And I did not know whether the translator knew enough astrology to translate. But I must say, I found Russian students very sincere and very hardworking. I have very favorable impression of Russian students. I went to Japan also, once only, but a Japanese student was here in Delhi, studying for many years, and he has been doing remarkably good work in Japan. So what I am saying is, you encourage people to continue doing astrology, even if they give up astrology for consultation. And over a period of time, something will flash in your mind and you'll produce something very extraordinary. I could have said many more things, but after so many lectures, I do not want to continue now. All that I want to say is, when I saw you all people, I saw Dennis Harness, and I remembered his son, who was playing with me. He must be now more than 20 years, and he became a good friend of mine. One of the best friends I have in USA is the small little boy I met in 1994 or 95. And he was with me in 2 stations. Dennis Harness' son. So my love to him and goodbye to all of you. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Shri K.N.Rao. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Shri Rao. Congratulations again on receiving this prestigious award.
With him. Now, bear in mind, there's like maybe hundreds of people in the room. And, I was a little late in getting there. So I looked in the room and he's over in a corner and the room's completely filled with people. The only place in the room was right in front of him, a few feet away. But I was determined. So I climbed over people. They didn't particularly appreciate that. Plopped myself right down in front of him. And after a minute or so, he looked at me and said, "Do you know your horoscope?" And so I was trying to reach into my portfolio and give him the horoscope. He says, no, just dictate. So I started to tell him my horoscope, starting with the ascendant, placing the planets. Almost immediately after I was finished, he starts reeling off statements about my life. The first thing he says was, had a good classical education, studied literature. Well, I was a literature major in college and did have a good classical education. Said, well, you are the only male heir of your parents, but you have 5 sisters. I was astonished. That's exactly right. I was the only son and I had 5 sisters. He said, breaking your education, studied some classical subjects, but then later on, more technical subjects. Well, there was a big gap between when I got my undergraduate degree and when I got my master's degree. So not to belabor a point, but he went on like this. And I'm thinking to myself, I'd never seen an astrological demonstration like this. Bear in mind that I'd been a Western astrologer 20 years before that and was just kind of looking into Jyotish. David Frawley had invited me to attend. And so I was thinking maybe this man's actually psychic, which is what a lot of people felt after they had a consultation with K.N.Rao. Later, I came to find out that statement that he was making about my chart had an astrological basis. And so the next day, he was teaching a class on timing the birth of children, something that his mother had been an expert in. He had just written a book called Planets and Children, and he was doing a workshop about this. And of course, I signed up, and I learned the methodology. Everyone can learn it by seeing that book, Planets and Children. And when I got back to San Diego, the word got out that somehow I now could predict the birth of children. So I got a call from some woman who'd been trying to get pregnant through the in vitro process, no success, and wanted to know if I could tell her when she was going to have a child. So I said, well, I'm completely new at this, but I did learn this method, and I have this book, so I'll give it a try. Long story short, I applied all the methodology, and I said, maybe I'm just seeing what I want to see, but it looks like you're going to give birth to the child next June. So I completely forgot about this, and this was back in the time of answering machines. So I get home from work one day, and on my answering machine, the woman says, hello, Marc, I just gave birth. It was June of this year. So might have been beginner's luck, but I don't think so. It just had to do with what K.N.Rao taught. And since then, I've had the good fortune of predicting, actually last year I predicted the birth of a child within 24 hours using the methods that he gives both in that book and also in his book, predicting advanced use of Chinese Charadasha, right? So, and then another story I want to tell you about, he stopped coming to the U.S. late 1995. And so if I wanted to spend some time individually, I needed to go to India. And I took a leave of absence from my position and went there for 6 weeks in November of 1996. And, at first it was very difficult to get any time alone with him, right? And if you wanted to be able to have conversation with him, you had to stay up very late at night, as David Frawley was talking about. But at some point, he said, come on, Marc, we're going to go on the road. And he started taking me to different sacred sites in Rajasthan and north of Delhi. So I had the opportunity just to spend a lot of individual time with him on these long bus rides. So one evening over dinner, I got up the courage to tell him, hey, Mr. Rao, I have the ambition of trying to follow to some degree in your footsteps, meaning I wanted to become a good predictive astrologer. I wanted to teach and I wanted to author. What did he recommend? Now, what he said to me was actually a little discouraging. He said, well, over a period of 10 years, work on thousands of horoscopes, noting the correlation between the birth chart and the person's life experience, particularly the timing of events. Then you'll become a good predictive astrologer. And he had shown me back at his residence these notebooks. And I believe the number, he said he had 20,000 horoscopes of individuals where he had noted their life events in relationship to their life. So I did that over a 10-year period. I did work on thousands of birth charts. I still couldn't predict like he could, and I probably never will, but I was able to improve my predictive accuracy, particularly in terms of a certain set of life events, major life events. So this is, it's customary during commencement of speeches to make recommendations to students. And so this is my recommendation. And I know you've already been doing this. You've been working on charts. But this is how we discover, you learn from teachers, you learn from the Jyotish Shastra, but what you really learn from is experience. And there's no substitute for that. He used to use the phrase saturated experience. And what he meant by that, he'd worked on so many charts and seen so many combinations and saw what they could give, that it's like the doctor who's very experienced in diagnoses because he's seen so many cases before and he recognizes a certain symptom pattern and what that disease might be that's causing it, right? So it's the same thing with working on charts. If you have enough experience working on charts, seeing the different ways in which events can come out, this is what will increase your predictive accuracy, right? And so the other thoughts that I have, he would always recommend how important it is when you're involved in this sacred vidya to be involved in some sort of spiritual pathway and be doing spiritual practices. In fact, I'll tell you a story about that when I went to Delhi. So I was hoping when I went to Delhi, I was going to learn all these new secret techniques of prediction and all that sort of thing, right? And was kind of actually at first for a while a little disappointed because that wasn't really happening. But at one point he said to me, Marc, you're already technically quite good. You don't need to learn more astrological techniques. What you need to do is to do more spiritual practice to increase the level of sattva, clarity of perception, and in your consciousness. And this is what is going to enable you to be a better astrologer. And it reminded me of a story I heard about when Dr. Raman's children would ask him how they could become good astrologers. He would say, meditate, right? So it's only because, K.N.Rao had this incredible ability to, amongst the various things that a combination in a birth chart could mean, he could see with the likelihood thing that it did mean. And in his book, Predicting with the Vimshottara, he talks about the different stages of a prediction, right? The last stage being he called seeing. And this is a stage that doesn't come from just pure astrological analysis and know-how. It comes from, you might say, a developed intuition born of spiritual practice. And of course, the spiritual practice that if you spoke to him that he would recommend over anything else would be the regular recitation of Vishnu Sahasranam, chanting the 1,000 names of the Lord. If you ever visited him in Delhi, and people like David Frawley and everyone would remember this, on every Wednesday night, Mercury's day, because Mercury pertains to Lord Vishnu, right? He would host in his residence a recitation of Vishnu Sahasranam, and this went on for decades. In fact, I once heard him say in an interview with Von Paul Manley that he always had kind of a hidden agenda when it came to Jyotish, meaning that a not so hidden agenda, that his agenda was to get people doing spiritual practices, right? Because he knew that this is the way in which they, number one, would become better astrologers, but number two, just advance in their spiritual life per se. And so this is something that, he always recommended. And I'll tell you a Vishnu Sahasranam story. So again, this is when I was in Delhi. I was with him every day. I was living in the same apartment complex that he would. I'd come and I'd sit with him every day. It was very informal in India. You didn't necessarily make an appointment. You just sort of dropped by. So one day, this lovely young lady and her mother dropped by and was speaking with me, Mr. Rao. They were speaking in Hindi and I didn't understand it, but I got the impression they were inviting him to something and he was sort of politely saying, well, thank you, but no thank you. And later I got the story. And the story is that the lovely young woman had appeared there for a consultation some 6 months earlier where some sort of mysterious skin disease where her skin had all these blotches on it were spoiling her appearance. And it was at a time when marriages would be arranged. And as because of this, she wasn't getting any offers. And the family was actually somewhat affluent and they could afford all the best specialists, but no doctors could figure out what was going on or was causing this problem. And so Mr. Rao saw that, by the way, as many of you probably know, the graha pertaining to the skin is Mercury. And he was seeing that she was running the Mercury Mahadasha, and there was an afflicted Mercury. So what was his recommendation? He said that she and the family needed to sit down and with devotion, do a daily recitation of Vishnu Sahasranam. And, you never know what the cause and effect is, but the problem mysteriously disappeared as mysteriously as it had appeared. And she was coming to invite him to the wedding because she had then been recently engaged. And so this is one of my favorite stories about Upaya, right? Because we all know Jyotish has two components. It has a predictive component. And, one way to think about Jyotish is a method of diagnosing karma. And of course, why does a doctor diagnose? They diagnose in order to prescribe. What do we have in terms of this as far as Jyotish? We have a upaya, right? Which, depending on the fixed, firm, or flexibility of a karma, it won't necessarily be able to be modified, but sometimes it can. And, I have my own stories to tell this well. A very typical sort of thing is a woman coming to me that she wasn't finding love in her life. She wasn't finding a mate. And she wanted to know if I could recommend a practice that could help this. Now, you can see her chart, some of the problems associated with her finding fulfillment in her relationship life. But, I recommended a practice and recommended that she do it for 40 days. And spoke with her subsequently. And she said, well, no love has appeared in my life, but I don't suffer from the way in which I used to for not having a relationship in her life. In other words, the upaya didn't change anything in the external circumstances, but it did, in fact, change her internal relationship with it. And this is an important thing to understand. Now, coming up, she was running Rahu Venus, a period and sub-periods very famous for bringing a fated love affair into her life. I predicted that it might, it did, and she is to this day involved in that relationship. So these are some things to always keep in mind, that what we have to offer as astrologers, of course, is our insight into the chart, our empathy for what a person might be going through, right? Accurate empathy. But then also we can prescribe these things. And I want to say something about that too, because, Shri Rao would emphasize that the only thing that he would recommend are the upayas that are mentioned in Parashara Hora, which are what? First of all, it mentions dan, which of course means charity. And the way he used to define this is that helping a needy person. I've always remembered this phrase. It doesn't necessarily mean, making some monetary donation, although it could, but just helping a needy person when you were in a position to do so. That is one way to impact your own karma. The other thing, of course, would be the recitation of mantra and stotras. Over and over again in the chapters on the effects of dashas in Parashara Hora, when it mentions how a certain period could be problematic, it gives some recommendation in terms of some practice this way. And of course, what's also mentioned is homa, that is the Vedic fire ceremonies, would also can be an effective upaya if done by sattvic priests for not overly commercialized ways and means. So these are some of the things. Now, the other thing I want to emphasize is, and emphasize with K.N.Rao is emphasis on research. Of course, at the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, Institute of Astrology, they've done some of the most amazing researches. When you went through that program and you showed good skill, you might say, good capacity, you would be invited to join research groups. And these research groups would be headed up by one of the faculty members. He would himself be teaching a research group, I think, every weekend. I can remember being a part of that. And when I first saw what would happen in that research group, I thought I knew some astrology, but when I heard those students, I realized I hardly knew anything. So he always emphasized research and adding to the field, which is what I've tried to do. A lot of my articles that I've written have essentially been research articles. Now, I just saw Deepak Basario, so I want to say something about him as well. When K.N.Rao, when I was in India, one of the things he took me to was this Briga reader, right? I had a Briga reading, and one of the things that came out in the Briga reading was that I was going to write books on astrology, and that here was the exact phrase: my international tours would be many. Now, bear in mind, this is 1996. I'm 43 years old. Fast forward to 2013, K.N.Rao and Deepak Basario had been invited to teach in Sochi, Russia. You remember this, Deepak? And unfortunately, because of his health, at the last moment, K.N.Rao had to back out. So it was just Deepak Basario and I, teaching in Sochi, Russia. This led to me going and teaching in Russia twice a year, every year, up until the time of COVID. And since then, I've taught in Japan, I've taught in Turkey, I've taught in India. And so this phrase that your international tours will be many, that came out in the bigger reading when K.N.Rao took me there, really proved out to be true. And then it also said at the end of the reading that I was there with this man who was my teacher, which of course was true, and that if I just stay affiliated with him, I would progress in astrology. And so, as I said, I've always tried to follow in his footsteps in terms of emulating his approach. He talked about packed dares, which is, of course, something that any student who learns from me is immediately get introduced to. And, you know, S stands for special features. What are special features? Well, they're mostly consisting of the Graha yogas. So again, another piece of advice I have for students, and I'm sure this was part of your program, is to really focus on learning yogas. Yogas of the Jyotish are, you might say, building a temple, being involved in temple building, which I couldn't imagine how that would actually be. Well, it turns out, I think like in 2012, I bought a home here in Southern California. I decided to build a small temple in the back of it. And then I remembered about this even after this. And I sent K.N.Rao an email reminding him how we had this experience together of my being told I was being involved in temple building. He writes back to me, "You've installed 3 deities," which turned out to be absolutely correct. How in the world he could have known that, I have no idea. But this was very typical of K.N.Rao. And, you know, another way in which he would practice that I recommend to students is that he would, you know, prior to a consultation, he would look at the person's horoscope in terms of their past and identify potential events and periods they could be running. He would actually write down a list of these. That when the person would show up for the consultation, he would ask them to check off those that were accurate and those that weren't. This is a bold way to practice. You have to have a lot of confidence in your abilities, but the effect is very strong. First of all, if you're correct about most things, it establishes your credibility as a competent astrologer. And secondly, he was also looking to see if he was working on a correct horoscope and it was giving correct results. So I don't want to, you know, prolong this too long, but I guess one thing I want to mention, if you want the direct experience of learning from K.N.Rao, many of you may be aware that there's literally quite a few videos of him when he was teaching in the U.S. I was actually present at many of these, and I actually hear myself ask a question sometime, right? There was a woman named Beth Lim, who I remember her from being in these classes. She got K.N.Rao's permission to record all these, and now she's uploaded them to YouTube. And, you know, they're mostly audio, but if you need to see a chart, she shows the chart as well. So if you've not seen these or if you're not aware of these, I wanted to mention that these are there, and they are a treasure. I've re-listened to all of them, and, you know, many of them are very introductory, but just hearing him teach and how he taught and things that come out when he's discussing the horoscope, even if you're a very advanced student, you're still going to learn things. So, Dr. Cicero, I don't know if we should continue on here or whether this is the time frame you wanted me to speak in. Give me some feedback on that.
Well, that should be fine. Yeah.
Okay. Yes?
Yes. Yeah.
All right.